Alright, FFS Squadron, this is Fauster here. Just going to do a little quick and dirty on how to fly the Hs-129, otherwise known as the Duck. Quick cockpit familiarization. You got your altimeter here, repeater compass, turn and bank, manifold pressure. You got to move the stick a little bit. There's your airspeed indicator. Your ammo counters, center guns are MG17 as you can see, and the outer are your MG151. That can be either the 15 or the 20 depending on what you pick. That is your vertical speed indicator. And yeah, a lot of these other knobs and things doesn't really matter. It's all automated startup process anyway. Only other gauges you need to worry about are on both your engine pods. You got your RPM on the top left, fuel gauge at the top, then a bunch of these that look cool but don't really mean anything as far as the context of the simulation goes. Alright, before startup, you want to just nudge your mixture. Doesn't matter how much, as long as you touch it. There's a known bug with the flight model where the startup will shut your mixture all the way to zero, cutting your engines as soon as the startup process has been finished. So once you nudge that, just go ahead and start your engines like any other plane. For this loadout, excuse me, I've taken probably the best overall loadout you can take. The MK103 30mm holds more rounds than the MK101. Mirror, you can't see shit behind you in this plane, so even though it's not that great, it's better than nothing. And the 20s, I personally prefer the 15s for fighters, but the 20s and their larger HE content with the Familiarization do a lot better work on soft targets. But personally, you do whatever works for you best. That's engine 1 started. Another thing to note is that the Duck has no automated, or manually controlled for that matter, coolant or temperature, oil, whatever. Doesn't have any controls whatsoever in regards to maintaining a optimal engine temp. I am not a subject matter expert on that. I don't know if it's just automated and there's no manual mode, or if these gnome Roan engines don't give a fuck. I actually think it's the latter personally, because you can abuse the hell out of these engines, as I'll show you. Now, once you got both engines started up, first thing you want to do obviously is taxi. It's not any different than any other German type aircraft. You got your tow brakes to steer the aircraft. This is actually a pretty pleasant airplane to taxi. Doesn't take a whole lot of effort to get going. And the brakes are very responsive. It's not like a Stuka where it takes about, or 110 for that matter, where it takes about a mile before the brakes actually stop you. I'm going to cheat a little bit, just because I'm a cool guy. I'm going to show you some cool guy tricks. First things first, these engines can rev all the way to 3,000 RPM and 1.5 ATA. In order to do that, you need to go to boosted mode. As I'm sure you know, if you've ever flown the Duck, it has a RPM management system, not like any other plane in the game. If you have it in auto mode, it'll pin your RPMs at 2750 and regardless of throttle input, which will basically put you in permanent combat mode. You can maintain this for half an hour at full power. That's 100% throttle and auto RPM. If you want to fly continuously, you have to put it in manual and adjust it up as your speed increases. Normally, for climbing and some basic cruise, you're going to have it around 50. Once you start getting into some very level flight and sometimes past, You might go as high as like 65, 70, depending on weather conditions. But that's all stuff I'll elaborate more on once we get in the air. Right now, I'm just going to do a quick takeoff on this taxiway because this plane is actually fairly easy to control. I have no worries about going off this taxiway and hitting any obstacles. You don't really need flaps. You can if you want. It will expedite the lifting of the tail, but it's not really that important. I like to use flaps when I'm trying to do like a Piper Cub takeoff, where you give full power, full forward deflection of the stick and lift the tail up off the ground before the aircraft begins to move forward. But I'm just going to do normal takeoff for now. But I will demonstrate the fully boosted mode for your viewing pleasure. First, set the engines to manual prop pitch. Whatever your button for boost mode is, I believe it is the exact same as the LA5s. And then make sure your prop pitch is set all the way to 0, the most fine setting. Probably want to close your canopy. It's a bit like the ILT, you can fly around with it open for some better visibility, but it's still nice to have protection. Alright, brakes on. I'm just going to rev this sucker up, full stick forward, brakes off. Steer a little bit with the toe brakes and the rudder in the same sense. Like, give a little bit of rudder. If it's not working out for you, give a little bit of that brake. As you accelerate, add some pitch to reduce the RPM on the engine so you don't kill them. And you're up. Raise that landing gear as soon as you can. Ooh, that tree was kind of close actually. As you can see, I'm revving the shit out of these engines and they just do not care. You have about a minute of full boost power, so don't kill it all in one go. You might want to use it for egress. I've obviously been going a little hard, but once you're in the air, turn the boost off and raise your pitch to an appropriate level. Continuous RPM is about 2450. Apologies, 2350 actually. And that is all there is to it to take this lovely bird off. I am climbing at the moment, so my pitch is pretty low, 40. For climbing altitude, or not altitude, attitude, I generally like to set the pitch on my trimmer and the pitch on my props the same. Put about 50, put the prop about 50, let go of the stick and throttle, make sure it's level, and this plane will climb all by itself. It is an extremely stable aircraft, no rudder trim necessary, and this will climb for days. Now, when you begin an attack, generally once you're relatively close to the AO, you got eyes on your target. You might want to flip to auto propeller pitch, go to full power, and then start to engage your targets. Ooh, other note. When you're in continuous mode, you cannot go above 90% power, which on the manifold pressure is about 1.1. You can squeeze a little bit more out of it. But generally 1.1 ATA. As you can see, I can put the pitch all the way to something ridiculous, drops my RPM to like, below 2,000. But if I give it full power, it's not doing it just because I can't get enough manifold pressure. But you get the picture. You just generally don't want to go above 90%. Alright, so say, this is not doctrine at all. This is just what I have done and what works for me and keeps me from pancaking into the ground. Whenever you engage a target, say like this bridge, you're going to realize that this duck really does not like high speed. I mean, I'm pretty much already going too fast for it to have as much control authority as it used to. But that can be alleviated by adding a bit of flaps, about 20% maximum, a bit of positive pitch. Now I can get going at some pretty good speed for a duck. Engage my target, and I have no problem pulling out. This is generally why you want to be in combat mode when engaging targets, though, so that your engines do not have to lose all that power with being in the low rev ranges coming out of a dive. This thing's kind of like the IL-2 in the sense that, you know, you're not going to be going too fast in a straight line or climbing at any point, but once you start getting these, these swoops going up and then down onto your target, you're going to hold your speed pretty alright. You're going to be going fast enough for any ground attacker. Primary trigger is the machine guns and the 30 mic. Secondary is your 15 or 20s, whichever you selected. This gun sight type thingy over to the side, that is for bombing. If you are bombing with the Henschel, you are wrong. It can carry less than a Stuka, not go as fast. And yeah, it's a gunboat. This thing's supposed to gun up tanks with its big old 30 mic. And let me tell you, when you get on target with this 30 mic, it works wonders on any tank. You can pop T-70s, BT-7s like nothing, T-34s once you get good at it. I still have trouble with the KV-1s, but they're doable. It's definitely doable. I can go into more detail about this if I ever do like a combat video, but KV-1s, you gotta get real steep in that dive, so I generally go like 0 power, lots of flaps, lots of positive trim, then I get steep. And then you gotta pull the fuck out of there. And yeah, you can rev your engines up from 0 like nothing. Like I said, these things go all the way to 3K, they don't care. You can just beat the shit out of them. They don't have much power, but they got a lot of heart. And just going back over this for clarification's sake. Flying level, speed, 300-ish. Say 50, I'll hit the auto level. And you see it's going to keep popping me into combat power because the RPMs are getting too high because the plane's getting too fast. So then you give it a little more, drop back down 2350. And then you just keep playing that game, until your speed gets higher. I don't know if it's even going to do it in time. Yeah, there you go. And then like 60. Simple as that. It's complex sounding, but with the type of flying that you do in this plane, generally a lot of straight and level, and then that option to go into auto combat power once you are engaging a target, it's not that hard. Alright, just cheat and use my map a little bit. See where we are. Okay, airfield's off to our 1 o'clock. Somewhere over there. Alright, to land this beast, it's also pretty easy. Honestly, I think it's probably one of the easier German bombers to land. Right next to like the Heinkel and the Stuka, Ju-88 being kind of a pain in the ass. Hell is my goddamn airfield? Oh, shoot. There it is. Oh. Alright, as with thing landing, throw your landing lights on so 109s don't pull out in front of you. They might, but at least you can say that they weren't warned. Or you can't say they weren't warned. Jesus, it's cold. Anyway, pop flaps all the way to 100. Drop the gear in whichever order you like. I mean, honestly, you're not going to be going fast enough to coming in for a landing to where you're going to rip anything off. Give yourself some positive pitch so that you don't have to try and pull the stick up into a landing. Let it float a little bit. And then flare out. Let it touch down. Nice. That's just me. This is what my civilian pilot instructor always told me. You always want to drop flaps as soon as you're getting ready to brake, so that way the full weight of the aircraft is on those wheels and not flaps aren't giving you lift that's not helping with that. To each his own. The canopy, bada bing, you're on the ground, probably got like 20 T-34 kills under your belt, and you're a goddamn hero of the Reich.